All right. So my next question would be, then how do we have this, how do we have that good life? We all want it, right? So what are the steps we need to do to take? What are these things we need to do to have that good life?
Yeah, we already explained that earlier on. So we are born into deficiency by default. All right. So you want to have a good life. What kind of good life do you want to have? The next kind of good life you want to have is to have comfort. You want to be able to afford a good roof over your head, food. I mean, if we are going by the Maslow's law, you want to have a shelter, you want to have food, you want to have and then once you are comfortable with that, you want to move to security, psychology, and ultimately to this level that we are trying to attain. That's the apex of the hierarchy. Okay, from basic needs to physiological needs to ultimately self-actualization. Because you actually get to a level after you have taken care of these basic things, you've taken care of being loved and raising family, having loved ones and all of that. You also want to take care of self-actualization because you feel at a point, there's always time for everything. At a point that, yeah, after all of this, then what next? You don't want to conclude. I mean, you want to see beyond that level where they say vanity upon vanity, all is vanity. So after all of this, what next? What's this? So you want to actually attain self-actualization. Self-actualization, there's something called that, which means as far as money is concerned, as far as food is concerned, as far as having family and loved one is concerned, as far as having security, not just physical security, but security as it relates to my everything that I possess is concerned, I have all of that. Yet I still feel this emptiness that all right? Take it to self-actualization. That's the level at which we are discussing. You see what I said, that we are not for everybody? Because some of these teachings will not even make sense to somebody that is still at the level of, let me even get food and shelter. They've not even moved from the base of the hierarchy, and then you are already telling them about self-actualization. So back to your question. Yeah, you want to move from having nothing to being comfortable. Education, get a job. I mean, get a skill, learn a skill, get education, go to school. I mean, develop a talent, all of that will give you good life, will make you comfortable. But again, you will dwell there long enough to discover that, yes, but no, this is no longer enough. All right? From having nothing to having something now, yet you are saying this is no longer enough. So you want to move to the next level. So we are saying the next level after that in your search for actualization will mean fulfillment. To find fulfillment. You want to not struggle by yourself to make $100,000, $200,000 per annum, but to now have your own effort being supported by forces outside of you. All right. If you liken that to computer or some IT gadgets like robots, it's no longer about you being just mechanical and being hardware alone. You now also want to have software inside of you that is driving you and making things easy. So not just hardware working, but hardware and software now working together to perform as the robot, as the computer, as the device. Even like your mobile phone. All right? Your mobile phone by itself is just able to make call and send text messages. But there is something to which you connect your mobile phone, and that mobile phone that was just making call and sending text messages now become all powerful. Can do Zoom, can link to all of bank accounts, can take card payment, can do from just working by itself to now connecting to something that now makes it very, very powerful. It's no longer just a mobile phone. It's now an indispensable piece of device. That is the same way by ourselves, we are just struggling and doing and making calls and sending SMS. Meanwhile, there is so much that we have the potential to do if we can just connect to that something bigger than us, just like your mobile phone can connect to the internet and have access to the different servers with different applications. One mobile phone can run thousands of applications. Once I'm done with Zoom now, I'm doing something else. Once I'm done with that, I'm doing something, the same mobile phone. That versatility, that power that is relieved to the mobile phone by its connection to the internet is the same kind of power we're talking about when we say an individual connects to, by his inner, to source, and now have power released to him through knowledge. So when you have that power released, then you are no longer at the level of being comfortable. You are now at the level of having access to all things. How do you describe it when you have access to all things? Is that not riches? Is that not wealth?
Mm-hmm.
You are not wealthy. I mean, even if you don't have it in the material, because it is not all the time that you are wealthy and you want to display it in the material. You know that you have access to all of things. It's registered there. You know because when you do need it, you call it and it comes. But you don't really want the distraction of affluence. That's a different topic for a different day. In other words, the great teachers that were here before us, Jesus Christ, for example, had access to become a billionaire if he wanted to, because he has access to the same wisdom that Solomon had access to be, that made him the richest man in his time. But it's just that his calling is not towards the acquiring. As a matter of fact, he gets to a level as part of the wisdom where you just realize, like we said earlier, vanity upon vanity. So what's all this for? You know what? I'd rather use my energy for healing, for teaching, for making the world a better place in this kind of way, not necessarily in accumulating wealth to myself. But we'll leave that to another time. Back to the question, you can move from being comfortable to having access to all things, to being wealthy by triggering that connection. The same connection that makes a mobile phone, not just a mobile phone anymore, but a device that is capable of doing everything. That same connection would make you, not just this you anymore, but that by that connection, you now have access to all things that you can materialize from the spiritual to the material if you want. The fact that you have access does not necessarily mean that you want it, because there are different levels of wisdom. There's a level of wisdom I mentioned passively at one time, that when you get to a certain level, you are no longer a people's person, therefore you may not do something. Yeah. Anyway, but there's still something higher than just connecting and having access to wealth and therefore being wealthy, whether you decide to display it in the material or you have attained some level of wisdom where you know, man, there is a better way to use my wisdom to benefit mankind than just accumulating wealth to myself and just buying private jets and building houses upon houses. Yeah, all these things you are pursuing, you get to a level where you actually can afford them, but you decide by the wisdom that you now come into that there is no need anymore. It doesn't mean that you cannot afford it. But there's a higher level than just connecting and having access to this thing. What if you now decide to stay permanently? Instead of just connecting, you are not staying permanently there, so that you don't even have to connect to get it. You are already there. Is there a difference between that level? Yes, there's a difference, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. At that level, you are now day and night, every day, every night, almost permanently, not like religiously like this. I'm just saying in your doings, by the kind of lifestyle you have developed, from the knowledge that you have, from the power that is released by that knowledge, from the wisdom that you have. You now find yourself always living this new tradition, this new culture that you have imbibed over 10, 15, 20 years, to see that you are now always meditating. That's why they said, don't let it depart from your mouth day and night. It's not you making effort to do it. It's not you locking yourself up in a special room to say you are meditating. Even in your doing on a regular basis. Like it has happened to some of us at different times of eras of our lives. Just find that whatever you are doing, your mind is always not here. Your mind is always about heavenly things, what they call heavenly things. All right? Your mind is not, you're always thinking, explaining things in terms of source, power, wisdom. Right? And then you are always constantly meditating. Even though in the physical, you may be doing something different. At that level, you are no longer just connecting for wealth. You are now actually permanently dwelling in the place of wealth. So when you dwell permanently in the place of wealth, you are no longer just wealthy, you are now prosperous. And they are there in the books. They are there in the books. If I briefly refer to Bible again, it was said of Joshua when it was his turn to reign, that this book of law, what is the book of law? What is law? Basically principle, book. Okay, maybe you don't have a physical book, but you can connect to that spiritual book. I don't know if you got that. You don't really have to be literate to know these things. You don't have to read. They are not read in the first place. Reading them could expand your mind to trigger, but the real giving is not in the reading. It's not in the reading. So you don't have to be literate for these things to be revealed to you. For your inner to connect you and lead you to your teacher. I mean, there are the cases of blind people who even see by the third eye more than what people that have a vision can see in the physical. They didn't read them, and they can quote even the Bible that they have not read. They can quote it because the teaching is not different. It's just aligning, but it just depends on where are you seeing these things from at this time. So if that answers your question, this is the way to move from ignorance to knowledge, from having nothing to having something, from darkness onto light. And then the light will shine brighter and brighter and brighter until you get to that level. But you will not jump from here to there. You take it a step at a time. If you just jump from if it was possible, it's literally not possible. But if it's possible, then that is death. The nature is just sending that person to death early. If you move that person from having nothing to what's the highest level now? To prosper, to flourish, it cannot be sustained because the energy, the spiritual muscle that you need to carry that, it needs to be developed through this level. So to just carry a baby and say, come and carry a tank of a jerrycan of water, you are sending that baby to death.
Sure.
All right. So that is the level. That is the level. And then when we are going through all of this, we say we are suffering because we are short-sighted. We don't do anything. Oh, we are suffering. We are suffering. Oh, my father died. My mom died when I was young. I lived with my uncle, my auntie for 5 years. They suffered me. They punished me. All of that is to your benefit. All of that is to your benefit. So why are you complaining? And then I didn't go to school. When I was in school, I dropped out. I had to do this. All of those sufferings, if you know what benefits they are, why you are passing through all of that, why you are passing through all of that to make you the great entrepreneur of the future. The people that did not suffer, that had their father and mothers, everything prepared for them, you were even house girl to them. And they had everything they needed on platter of gold. Today, they are earning $250,000 as salary. That's the client. They are very comfortable. $300,000 per annum as salary. Because that's the highest that their upbringing can bring their comfort, the way they were, the much spiritual development they had while life was comfortable for them. That's the best you can give to them. But you, knowing that through this suffering, you don't have any help. Nobody is going to come from anywhere to help you. You are all alone in this life by yourself. What did that tell you? That you are on your own, or you better work hard, and then you put in all of the energy, all of these sufferings that you went through. You put all of them together to conclude that, well, since I have nobody, I'm going to make it by myself. And then you end up being a CEO that is paying that person. Maybe not directly working under you, but you have the potential to pay that person the 300K that is earning, the 250K that is earning. And then you are complaining that you suffer. Can't you see what the suffering led you to? Some of these people will call enemy if we know why they were placed in our lives to be our enemies. You would go to God and you thank God for placing those enemies on your path. But we refuse to see. We refuse we are blinded to the big advantages and seeing that they are depriving us. Yes, they are depriving you. They are depriving you. They put a hurdle on your path so that you cannot cross. Yes. But is nature unaware of it? Was it not nature that made it possible, that sent them there? Let's even say it as it is, to go and put that hurdle there so that you'll not be able to pass. And for the hurdle to send you back to where you are coming from and help you practice until you develop enough muscles to be able to jump over that hurdle. If it wasn't for that hurdle, how would you have developed that muscle? And then when you get to the front, across that hurdle, you are going to see that there is a lion devouring people in front. But because you had already developed your muscles by that hurdle that you cross, you are able to do something. Maybe you cannot run faster than lion, but whatever it is, you are able to do only because you already developed muscle to run into that shelter before the lion caught up with you, to run into the shelter. I mean, this is just my fantasy. I'm just trying to put this in context that might make meaning, but I'm just saying that the things that we are praying against, if we realize why they were put on our path, we'll be grateful and not really pray against them. We'll just ask that. You know, when you get to that level of you are now one with nature, you are now swimming with the tide. So instead of the normal opposite direction, nature is trying to push you here in the waters. And you are saying, no, I'm not going there. You are swimming against the tide. You are going to expend all of your energy. You're going to get so tired. And in no time, but when you now realize, oh, this water is from nature, then you just submit yourself to them and just swim with the tide. Just let the wave of this tide take you wherever it's going. Is it you? I trust. Remember, faith. Remember faith? Just, as long as it's you and my hands are, as far as I can see, clean, I consciously do things out of love, not out of self. You just re-examine within that split second. As long as it's nature, I trust that wherever it's taking me is the right place. Then you submit and you flow with the time. So all the energy for fighting against nature, you now conserve it for something more useful. So you see that almost 100% of the time, we spend our time and our efforts fighting against the very thing that was put there to lead us to where we should ultimately, maybe in 15 years, in 20 years, in 30 years, be. Nothing. We're just calling them suffering for lack of understanding. Nothing ultimately is suffering, even if it's coming from your enemy. There's a reason the enemy was put there. Yes. There's a reason the enemy was put there to do that. But it's just that. And that's why we'll stay there long, because we are not seeing it. And then we are repeating the class. Until maybe a teaching like this or something from somewhere opens your eyes and you say, and then finally you see it from a different perspective, and then you pass that class.